The game industry is full of bullshit, I think I've made that quite clear by now, but sometimes the bullshit needle swings in the favourable direction so that it smells a little bit better. You may have heard of this by now, but a free-to-play game from Phoenix Labs, Dauntless, is actually removing its loot box system following the past weeks and months of negativity surrounding the glorified gambling system. Bearing in mind this game was already free-to-play, so it had extra leeway, this is some pretty impressive stuff. This is rather commendable. Phoenix Labs admitted that it used loot boxes as a de facto choice, but never really thought much about it after its implementation. They just kind of whacked it in there because that's what you do. It was the default idea, and that was that. Until recently, of course. But in this interview with PC Games, design director Chris Clareau admits that a couple of years ago they made that choice, hadn't revisited it, but they confess it was never really the best of experiences, which, as one of the more dedicated loot box hounds out there, I fully agree with. Loot and loot drops should be fun for players. They shouldn't be a nasty, insidious way to get inside players' wallets. When asked whether this was a direct response to all of the loot box backlash, Clareau said yes and no. I'll just directly quote, "We're not entirely reactive, but we're not deaf. A lot of narrative right now focuses on the hybrid games, the ones that have a boxed product that costs $60 and then they want more dollars. Damn right. To be clear, I've made that sort of game before. Naughty. It was never done in a way of how can we milk more money out of the player. Instead it was, we have this new service that we're offering that costs a lot more, can we offset some of that cost?" I'm not entirely in I mean, look. I won't put a thought in somebody else's head. I'm sure that from the designer's perspective, from the developer's perspective, that's an innocent enough thought. We have this product, it's costing us a lot, let's offset the cost. But let's make one thing clear. As I've discussed on the Jimquisition quite recently, in fact, there are many ways that expensive games already offset their costs. I feel that when you go for the loot box system, the addictive, driving, most psychologically manipulative system, you have very little wiggle room to say that you're not trying to bilk as much money out of someone as you can. And in the case of major publishers, which I know that Clareau isn't speaking for, but in the case of major publishers, let's face it, that's why they're using their glorified gambling systems right now. When you've been given a choice between monetizing your content by selling it to a player directly and monetizing your content by hiding it all away and randomizing it so people get addicted and play more and pay more while they do it, I would say, especially in the case of a premium $60 game, you crossed a fucking line, sunshine. You had a choice. You could randomize, split stuff up, hide it, make people pay more on average, or you could just sell them shit directly. You know, an honest, upfront transaction. Milk me to my face, don't turn me round and then yank me udders between my legs. Oh God, what a thought. In any case, Dauntless has taken the honest option now. They will be selling you shit to your face. Up front, an honest exchange of money for goods. What a time to be alive. Two games name-checked in the article are Warframe and Path of Exile, which have been praised for their ability to present a free-to-play experience with microtransactions that don't make you feel like you're being taken for a fucking ride. Now, as I said earlier, being a free-to-play game already, Dauntless had more leeway than the $60 games that are trying to ensnare their players with gambling. However, Clareau said that he doesn't want to build a game that folks are okay with, he wants to build a game where people get behind the choices they make. He would rather deliver a quality experience and then get rewarded by the fans with money. Holy shit! You mean you want to make a really good game, get people into the game, and then have people choose to pay you rather than have you try and trick and coerce and harangue them into doing it? What bizarre and twisted kind of business model is that? Oh, that's right, a good honest one. I like this Clarou guy. I gotta wonder if he watches the Gymquisition because he's starting to quote things almost verbatim here. I'll read it out. I feel like the $60 boxed model without any demos or early access puts the player in a relationship where I have to spend money before I even know if I'm going to like the game. Now, you can download a game. If you fall in love with it, then you'll continue to play it, and hopefully, if they're really good and you continue to fall in love with it, then you, as a player, will reward us with money. And that is pretty much every game I've personally purchased microtransactions for. They've been free to play to begin with, they've been really good, I've fallen in love with them, and then I felt that I wanted to give them money to support them. Sometimes I didn't even feel like I needed the stuff. I didn't really want the stuff in particular, but I'm like, here, just take some money. You've given me hours of fun. Now, I realise that to some that will be an idealistic sounding business model, but it's a business model that has worked. In fact, before loot boxes were the hot new craze, there were plenty of games making plenty of money without them. It's just that you can make a lot more with them. And honestly, this goes out to anyone. If you can't make enough money, if you can't make a living without resorting to glorified gambling tactics, fuck you. You don't deserve a business. Now, in a manner somewhat similar to the announcement that WWE 2K18 was going to use only in-game currency for its loot boxes, I understand the instinct to say, well, you know what, it's fucking sad that this becomes news. It's sad that it's notable that a game has decided not to milk the teats of its audience until only dust comes out the end. But since loot boxes aren't going away anytime soon, I quite like headlines that paint them as dirty, nasty, sordid little things. I like the idea that loot boxes have become, in fact, so sordid that game developers do feel that it's good PR to come out and distance themselves from them. So while one free-to-play game taking loot boxes out of its system isn't something to throw a major league party over, I think it does deserve a little round of applause, because the more games that do it, the dirtier loot boxes look, and the happier I, for one, will be. I'm probably going to explore this train of thought deeper in a future Gymquisition, but I'm going to give it a little while. I try and give some space between the microtransaction episodes, just because I know people throw fits if I talk about it too much. Heaven forbid someone care about something more than a week. But in all seriousness, variety is the spice of life, and I want to try and vary the episodes up a little bit more before I jump back on the microtransaction train. But in terms of loot boxes, there's still plenty to say. People act like I've said it all. Oh, you haven't even heard half of my opinions on it. But for right now, this is a developer that has shown some class. Taken a look at its economy, thought, you know what, this isn't in the best interests of our audience, and then they made a change. While the mainstream game industry is only looking at its audience as ways to make more money, it's only looking at them in terms of whales and dolphins, you know, cattle, oceanic mammalian cattle. It's at least a little heartwarming to see a developer that's looking at its audience as, well, an audience. Something they're lucky to have, something that should be treasured, and something that may prove itself rewarding if the game itself is rewarding in turn. To quote Dauntless's designer again one more time, as we continue to evolve our monetization strategy, we continue to have that as our primary motivator. We're all gamers, we want to do things with integrity. Integrity. Now, there's a word I haven't seen associated with the game industry for a long time.